Audiobook Academy. Book Summary. Escape Key. By Michael Coleman. Escape Key is the second of 8 novels in the Internet Detective series written by Michael Coleman. There was a sequel to Net Bandits, which continues to chronicle the lives of 6 pals from around the world who are linked together by the internet in order to solve mysteries they seem to stumble into by accident. This book, like the last one, is about the courage of 6 friends: Rob, Josh, Tamsin, Lauren, Tom, and Mitch. They are the main characters in both books. However, the author also warns us about the hazards of the internet. New adventures await us on the internet with the escape key. The 6 pals pool their resources to crack the case. They not only defeat their adversaries, but also strengthen their friendship, learn about life, and rebuild their faith in their own skills during the course of the war. There are principles that come from friendship and justice that are depicted in the literature. Whenever they see a possibility for justice to be served, even if it means putting their own lives in peril, they seize it. They were able to positively identify the man Rob and Tamsin saw in an airport lounge as Kelvin Moore, also known as K.M. Clark, thanks to an internet photo that arrived from Australia. After his encounter with the internet detectives, 6 pals from around the world who love adventure, justice, and the internet above all else, he no longer knows how to avoid the cops. Using their abilities to fight for justice, they are a formidable force to be reckoned with. In Heathrow Airport in London, Tamsin and Rob were accompanied by Rob's mother on November 11, 2013. As the owners of a successful programming company, Rob's parents were not surprised by their son's interest in computers. Because of a vehicle accident that left him in a wheelchair, they felt the need to be overly protective of him. He met Josh and Tamsin while attending Abbey School. It was out of boredom that they began observing individuals and making educated guesses about their backgrounds, occupations, etc., that they came across a scruffy-looking businessman. In the bathroom, he changed into another suit and dumped a bag, which the lads were interested in, into the trash can, before returning to the room. They retrieved it and opened it. Kelvin B. Moore was listed on 2 cards, one of which was signed by a different person from the one shown on the business card. Lauren King was a Canadian resident of Toronto. As a result of her parents' deaths in a shipwreck, Allie was raised by her grandmother, Alice. On the internet, Josh and she played chess. Then she'll write Josh an email telling him he's been checkmated, as she told Allie she'd go bad. Allie sat down in front of the computer as soon as she saw her granddaughter asleep, grabbed the mouse, and got online in a flash. Tamsin explained to Rob the distinction between the 2 names on the card at school. They decided to drop the case because it was common practice for businessmen to exchange business cards. A frustrated Josh met them, enraged at the checkmate. Alice gave him a recommendation for a chess training program. On the business card that Rob and Tamsin found, Checkmate was listed as the company that sold the software. Their computers were turned on and they began to search for answers. Many of Rob's communications shared the same subject matter. For a CD that never arrived, people commented about paying Checkmate $40 for it. A fresh case for the internet detectives. Mitch in New York received an email from Tom in Perth informing him of Tamsin's venture. Rob and Josh are also contacting Mr. Moore via email. When Australian Tom Peterson saw Tamsin's email about the situation, he began his own investigation. At Queensbury Station after a 20-minute bus ride, Mr. Smith got off and headed for the number 7. The door marked Checkmate was open when he knocked, and he spotted his father standing there. In the meantime, Rob asked the librarian if he might borrow her computer to check his email. To his disappointment, NetGate's administrator informed him that Kelvin Moore's company was no longer online. After his inquiry, Tom was ordered to remain in his room. However, he will not be able to send the information to his buddies by email until the next morning. They were all there in front of him in the form of his father's business. There were cops, tax auditors, and detectives in the office. It dawned on him that Kelvin Moore, the subject of Tamsin Moore's email, and Kelvin, a suspect in a police investigation, were one and the same. Kelvin was Australia's chess champion as a child. A computer program as potent as the strongest player followed. To grow his business across Europe and the US, he ran out of money and began selling non-existent chess learning programs. The last thing Tom did before leaving the building was toss a scrap of paper into his bag. Because his mother was pushing him out the door to school and he couldn't read Tom's email at home in Portsmouth, Rob printed it out. His encounter with Tamsin and Josh at school prompted him to share his recent findings with them via email. Kelvin Moore and K.M. Clark were found to be one and the same after a short talk between the 3 investigators involved. In an email, Tamsin asked Tom to send her Moore's images so they could get a better idea of his appearance. There were papers being read by Leal, Tom's teacher at school, so Tom arrived early in order to write an email to her. On the front page of the newspaper, Kelvin Moore's story was featured. On his way to work, he realized that Tamsin's message had been waiting for him on the computer and that it was due to him being punished for not responding sooner. The internet went out just as he was ready to respond. As a result of Tom's scheme, he was placed in custody. He took out Moore's picture from the professor's newspapers, after which the whole class was grounded with an extra half an hour of class. To Tom's satisfaction, the timing worked out perfectly because he had just enough time to send the mail and the image. Rob received the images from Tom in the meanwhile, but they didn't match the man they saw on the tarmac at the airport. Shorten his hair, put on spectacles and get rid of the mustache with the help of a computer program. Finally, they ran across the man they'd first seen at the airport. Rob submitted the photoshopped photograph in the mail. Mitch was contacted after Lauren read the email. At his cafe bar job, he had access to 10 computers connected to the internet, and by working extra hours, his supervisor would allow him to log on. After Lauren told him everything, he devised a strategy and searched 11 hotels for more. Finally, in the Times Plaza Hotel, he found out his own address and ran to tell the others. When Mitch sent an email with the address to Rob, Josh, and Tamsin the day after his investigation was completed, they all gathered together. Mr. Peterson was interested in learning more about Kelvin Moore, so Tom told him all about him and then checked his phone number. It belonged to a crematorium in Kensington. Rob and Tamsin began their investigation online after having doubts about the data. A fair was taking place at the Kensington Continental Hotel, and they concluded that Moore was there. It included Rob's parents. In the list of companies participating in the expo, the name Checkmate appeared. Tom received Tamsin's email and printed it out to show his father about the fair. It was Rob's mother, Miss Sinelli, who drove them to the fair, where they were able to speak with the hotel doorman and learn whether or not Moore was still there. Their discovery that nothing was being exposed was a relief to the Checkmate team. He had to be in the hotel because they observed his bags on the floor of the lobby. At long last, they caught a glimpse of him making his way to a table where there was a chess tournament taking place, with Moore's show on hand to broadcast the action live. 10 games were supposed to be played face-to-face before the internet came along. Because there were only 11 of us, John felt compelled to sit near Clark's board. In order to alert Josh to the fact that they were being pursued, Tamsin made it to him. Tamsin took advantage of the opportunity to ask Moore if Checkmate was his company, and he simply said yes. As soon as Moore saw the woman in red, he tried to flee but was stopped by Tamsin and Josh, who put a bunch of bags on top of him. Her name was Commander Thompson, and she was dressed in crimson. A few days later, they found Miss Sinelli, who they filled in on everything that had happened. Since his arrest, Tom was free to use the internet as he pleased because Moore was no longer in custody. As soon as he could, he shared the good news with his friend. Characters: Rob, Tamsin, Tom, Mitch, Lauren and her grandmother Alice, Allie, Rob's parents, Tom's mother, Kelvin Moore K.M. Clark. Rob, his close buddies are Josh and Tamsin. He is a student at the Abbey School in London. After a vehicle accident, Rob is now confined to a wheelchair, yet his interests include video games, computers, and the internet. His parents are the owners of GameZone, a computer game development company. Tamsin, a girl that also goes to Abbey School with her friends Josh and Rob. She is a huge fan of the internet, computers, and literature. She is a real-life detective in the sense that she works alongside her 5 best pals to solve cases. She aids in the investigation into the Checkmate Company and Kelvin Moore's identity. Josh, and Tamsin's Rob's friend and a student at Abbey School. He is a huge fan of video games, computers, and the internet. Most of the time, Lauren wins when they play chess by email. Josh lends a hand to his online pals in their investigations. Tom, he lives in Australia with his mother who is a cleaning lady and his father who is a detective. Mitch, he lives in New York and works at a cyber cafe. There are numerous computers and an internet service at the cafe, which enables him to communicate with his pals. Lauren, a girl from Toronto, Canada, who lives with her grandmother Alice, Allie, who sometimes wanders the net. Lauren assists her pals in solving detective cases, and she also receives assistance from her grandma in this endeavor. To win chess with Josh is what brings her the greatest joy. Michael Coleman was born in London on May 12, 1946. SF author from the United Kingdom. Throughout his life, He has been an avid sports fan and an accomplished player. After he quit participating in sports, he began writing about them, and his first book series, Foul Football, is devoted to this topic. Computers were Coleman's favorite hobby, other from athletics. The University of Portsmouth employed him as a lecturer in informatics, and his enthusiasm for the field was evident in his writings as well. Technology has a role in a well-known series of novels by him. 8 novels in the Internet Detective series aim to show the delight of information technology and the Internet to young people whose lives have already been affected by technology. The author penned a small number of children's books, as well as young adult and adult novels. Net Bandits, the first novel in the Internet Detective series, was made into a film. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.